How about, do you want to jump to the joy of painting?
Oh, okay. Yes. Now this one, Richard really liked this. This was like I do all sorts of different styles of painting. I do realistic kind of picture, but even this is kind of different for me because it's realistic, but it's moody. It has kind of like a darker gothic. It's moody.
So according to your DeviantArt, this is called Forsaken, and it's Ami and Yumi from Puffy.
That's right.
And it was based on a painting you did on a tragedy in Japan.
Yeah, it's basically Japan really got whacked. They got a tsunami, and I remember it was a big tsunami. They saw it like sweeping across Japan, and that also caused a nuclear meltdown.
Oh, that is unfortunate. So this was 50 years after the atomic bombs were dropped.
And it was like a real meltdown, and like it was bad. And I just felt I really love Japan. I'm a pro Japan guy. Yeah. You know, out of the whole thing, I've been there, and you know, it's just great. And you know, but I really like these two singers. You know, there's a nice photo of them where they're hugging and stuff. But I always thought like, oh, that would be a good, just to emphasize the human tragedy, the pathos.
So is that a Japanese band or?
Okay. You should make fun of me for this, but yeah, they're a duo, and they're pop duo. They do a lot of different type of music, but they're like, it's a pop band, but I like their music. I love their music. It's kind of like happy music, and it's like.
I'm actually trying to get my buddy to start our own musical duo called the Toxically Brawn.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, it's a pun on words. But yeah, that's related. But this piece, this is so this is just based. This is to support the tragedy. Yeah, I think one of the things about Japan there's such a cultural force. Like everything that is culturally popular. Like I remember growing up, I was, hit with the Pokemon phase in 4th grade of this weird Japanese cultural thing that came to America. And it was like a wildfire. Why do I like this? Yeah. And so there's just lots of stuff in Japanese, like even anime now. Ganja art is manga is really starting to like take off. So I think Japan, maybe it's just that their island, they have they're like so isolated that they develop these cultural things that then like are so weird and so bizarre that they just become so popular over the place because they're unlike anything else really.
Yeah. It's just that they have the weird like they speak to everybody. Like people, this is one term I heard once. They've used this for other people too. They say the Japanese are just like everybody else, but more so. Which but I've heard that used for Jewish people too.
Like they're more human. Yeah, there are pretty quirky people, if I do say so myself.
You don't want to fight them in a war. I know.
No, well, even the whole samurai culture, just like they just will honor. They put honor over everything. It's like I would not want to be fighting. Because especially imagine if we fought them in a war now. Like people don't have much pride now, and you'd be fighting the samurai people that have pride.
The stories are terrifying of the way they would fight. Like the Germans, it would be like they get up and they shoot. What with the Japanese, at night they would sneak into your foxhole with a sword and like disembowel you, and while you were alive, and like then like pull your guts out, and then they would like leave a sign like he suffered and just leave. And they would they would really fight hard. And they would.
The kamikaze is the fact that I'm just going to fly my plane into your structure. Like I'm going to it's like, such a, I think, I mean, Japanese culture and even the martial arts and samurai culture is like pretty interesting. And got nothing but respect for, people that are that, passionate, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, avoid them in warfare.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of like doing Japanese type art, like manga art or anime? I feel like your stuff is right up that alley.
It's inspired by it. It's not dead on it, but you could probably see like on some of the more cartoony stuff where like that's an anime. Like the faces are inspired by anime, which oddly enough, anime was inspired by Western cartoons because they basically looked at Mickey Mouse and like the idea of the big eyes. They use that a lot is like that was them copying us, but then making it their own. So. Yeah, like you see the women I make, they're always usually cute, overly cute heads and, big old eyeballs.
Yeah, so I think it's a good piece of art. And I think the Japanese, I just very respect their culture. Actually, I talked about this in past shows too, but one person that I'm a fan of that's kind of Japanese culture, but also Buffalo culture is Taro Tsujimoto.
Oh, okay.
So you know about Taro Tsujimoto?
No, who is he?
So Taro Tsujimoto was he was the first Japanese ice hockey player drafted to the National Hockey League.
Oh, okay.
So in 1974, the Buffalo Sabres and their general manager Punch Imlach selected Taro Tsujimoto, who's the center for the Tokyo Katanas, and he was the first Japanese player ever drafted to the National Hockey League. The only catch is that he doesn't exist. So they drafted a fake player with a Japanese name, kind of to play a joke. So at this time, the NHL draft was like by phone. And
that's just funny.
Took forever. So like in the last round, they're like, let's just play a prank. Let's draft a player that doesn't exist and see and just as a joke.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
One of the scouts for the Sabres, he passed this like raspberry farm in like Springville or something.
Yeah.
Somewhere, and it was called Tsujimoto's Farm. So he said, let's call him Tsujimoto. So I think they actually called the owner of Tsujimoto Farm and said, what's a common boy's name? They said, Taro. So Taro Tsujimoto was born. So they built like this whole, they drafted him, and then even media coverage, like the media covered him like he was a real thing.
Yeah.
And even at training camp, the equipment manager like sewed him up a jersey. They put up a stall, and they kept the gag going for like a couple of years before people found out. Actually, he's fake. But the Taro Tsujimoto, he then Sabres fans, he's like a part of Sabres lore.
Yeah.
So actually at the old Odd, they used to chant like, we want Taro, like during blowouts. And sometimes you might be the Sabres name and it just says Tsujimoto. Like people wear Tsujimoto jerseys. So it's like and actually kind of riffing on my duo, one of the songs I want to write is called We Want Taro. So I actually want to write like a folk song about Taro Tsujimoto.
Yeah. Taro Tsujimoto, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a good Buffalo guy, comes to Buffalo from Japan. Just,
So I think that was, they actually gave him stats and stuff and said, and at that point there was no internet. So like the scouts, there was a Japanese hockey league, but none of the scouts that went there. So like it was kind of something you probably couldn't get away with now because people would just do a Google search.
Yeah,
but back then you could just make up a guy, and for years people thought he was a real figure. So that's kind of a weird Buffalo Japanese cultural tale.
That reminds me of John Starney had this. He talked about when he was in college, him and a bunch of his friends made up a world leader that was coming to Buffalo, and they called him like the Thales of. I'll have to look it up again. It was done in Buffalo, but he showed me articles on it, like the Thales of Monte Cristo or something. It was coming to Buffalo, and they just made it up, and they told the papers, and they also had they also had protesters go to the airport for this. And they made up a fake guy that coming from another country, and they said something like they would have signs like "We have nothing but malice for the Thales," and like they made up a controversy, and it got in the paper like, "Oh, this guy's coming to Buffalo," and it was a fake. It's something to Google search when you get off.
And I think there's room in the spirit of Taro Tsujimoto for like making up and pranking. I just think pranking is a lost art. There's nothing good. Yeah. We don't want violent pranks. We don't pranks that hurt people, but we want pranks where even the people participating, the people leading to the prank, once they found out a prank, should laugh and chuckle. Yeah, haha, you got me. It shouldn't have been like, I was violated there, or I was harmed. It should be a good, all in good jest.
Like, even got swatted.
I was road tripping, and we drove by a school in a small town, and there was actually a crew taking down toilet paper from the trees. Yeah, and I just thought that's a good, funny senior prank. No one was harmed. There was no damage. Yeah. Maybe the tree has some paper in it, but it's not like nothing was burned down or shot up or physically destroyed. It's really just a good, funny joke. Yeah. I'm sure the principal of that school did not take it as well, but I thought there should be room in our society for impractical and practical jokes that jokes can bring people together.
Okay. Another thing, me and my buddies, my art buddies, I don't know if you remember this, we had a pointless protest.
Okay. I think I remember you holding up a sign that said something.
We made up stupid signs that, like, my one sign said, "People are jerks."
People are jerks. Yeah.
And I just stood around and, like, we were having an art show, and so my one friend had, like, a sign that said, "Creep." It was called Creep Show. Creep Show sucks. So we were protesting our own art show.
I think there's fun. Flash mob protesting would be fun, like an actual positive protest. Like, if you held up a sign and you were picketing, but it said something like world peace or something like save the animals,
something like that, but our point was to have like just nonsensical signs.
So